Good morning to the guys joining virtually. We're going to be a few minutes because we don't have a quorum as of yet.
It's gonna be Jeff Epstein now.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Good morning.
Yes. Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, let's call order the have the County Convention Facilities Development Corporation meeting for today, the date of Friday, January 27, 2023. Let the time be reflected to be 8:35 a.m. Julie, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Sellers.
Here.
Najee McClue.
Here.
Tim Oftermatt.
Here.
Trevor McAleer.
Here.
Jeff Epstein.
Here.
Michael Obie.
Here.
David
Here.
Gilbert.
Here.
Matt Carroll. Rashonda Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Let us, in your package, you should have the meeting minutes from 2 meetings. I'm asking for a motion to approve the 2 sets of meeting minutes. The first meeting was the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for October 21st, 2022. Questions, comments, or concerns? There's a motion made by McGee to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, those meeting minutes are approved. Let's go to the second set of meeting minutes for the date of December 21st, 2022. Questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, there's a motion made by McGee to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, those meeting minutes are approved. We will now go to the portion of the agenda that provides for the executive director report. I will turn it over to George Hillo.
We have a couple items to discuss. One of the matters is that we're having problems with the birds that are flying into the building. And so we have assembled some information on that as to where we stand on this. In your packet, you should have a report that was provided by the
Ohio Lights Out.
Ohio Lights Out Commission, and they went back for 5 years. Over the last 5 years, they've been accumulating birds that have flown into, that have died around the building. They're not all with our building. They are with various aspects of the intake valve,
Air intake sac.
air intake stacks, yeah. So anyways, if you go, you have this in your packet as an attachment. And if you look through it, there were 163 birds. Yep, there were 163 birds that died. They're flying into the building. But we have a breakdown. I don't have a breakdown of detail here. In our building here at the Global Center, or the Convention Center, there were 29 birds on the one side that died over 5 years, and 22 on the other side over 5 years. That's of the 163. Most of the birds are flying into the stacks that we have. And they have mirrors on the stacks, and that's what's causing that. So anyways, that's where the situation is right now. What we are doing is, we have hired a consultant that'll be here next week, because we're moving kind of fast on this, we want to get this done. We have, you have in your packet, they have in your packet, the bird control advocacy, the background of the consultant that we've hired. They've done work in at Liberty, Newark Airport, Kansas City Airport, Denver Airport, Disney building in New York. So they've got very good credentials, it appears. And we have a contract, you have a contract in your packet that we have signed and asked them to come out and take a look and give us a summary. These are independent people, because so often when we call someone to recommend something, they seem to recommend the product they're selling. So these people do not sell anything. They're purely bird control advisors. So we will be getting a report back, and we'll be presenting it to the board for their comments and approval or what. Okay. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair,
If I could just add real quick, I mean, this was brought out, I think, to the attention of Councilwoman Simon from Lights Out Cleveland. I think they conducted the initial data study that they then met with Ron and I think his team. So I just wanted to say thanks for deeper into this. I know Jeff got involved as well, and I think Ron and a couple others are going to come in next Wednesday to give I think this same presentation to the Environment and Education Committee on Wednesday.
George, there's one additional aspect of that, which is that in terms of our building project, we received conditional approval from Landmarks, and we can talk more about that. But one of the conditions is because we are bumping out the west side of the building, the study will also take a look at anything that may be recommended or advised on the first floor bump out on the west side of the building for the bird issue.
Yes, we're moving very fast on this because we don't want anything to hold up our addition. We're on target for have it completed by June of 24, and we want to continue that. We're moving fast on this.
Questions? All right, George, what?
Okay, then, yeah, so again, it was a 5-year study, 29 birds died on one side, 22 on the other. So just to tell you the dimensions of what it is. The other thing we have to bring up is the bollard, and I'd ask Mike to maybe comment on the bollard.
So regarding the exterior crash-rated security bollards that this board approved, we continue to be in a holding pattern. Everything is from our end has been submitted to the county, but the county is waiting on the funds to be released from FEMA under the Urban Area Security Initiative, and it goes to the state, and then the state provides it to the county, and that's when we can finally have those funds and go through the procurement process to get it across the finish line. But as of right now, from our side, we've given everything to the county, and I know they're waiting on getting those funds from FEMA.
Thank you, Mike.
So what's the process after that? I mean,
So after that, after those funds are released, the county has to put the bollards out to bid. So they have to go through the procurement process.
Okay. All right, any questions about the ballot project? George, anything? No. Any questions for George from the Executive Director's report? All right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Board renewals, Jeff Applebaum.
Yes, under our process, we have these seats that are now to the end of their term and are subject to renewal. The way it works, we have reached out. So in the case of Mr. Obie and Mr. Carroll, that is an initial recommendation from the new county executive. In the case of Mr. Aftermath, that comes from council president. So the process right now is we reach out to them. They will indicate to us whether they recommend continued renewal of these board seats, and then that recommendation comes back to the board. Keep in mind that the way our process works, the executive and the county and the council president, they recommend these seats. It is up to our board to then approve those recommendations. So by the next meeting, hopefully we'll have all that taken care of. Also keep in mind that until a determination is made, those in those seats continue in their seats. So that's how the renewal process works.
All right, any questions? So
That's April, right? They're up in April, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Jeff. We will go to the next item on the agenda, the convention center update. I'm gonna turn it over to Ron.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for my voice, and I don't apologize for wearing a mask. I'm doing it out of respect for everyone in here. I had the flu a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still just kind of recovering from that. I'm not contagious. out of an abundance of caution and for respect for all of you. Just very quickly, January, we're off to a good start. We had JVA volleyball. JVA in the past was a 1-week event, and moving forward, there'll be 2 weeks every January. Also had the Tribe Fest last weekend, very successful. This weekend we have cheerleading, so we're off to a good start.
Guardian Fest.
Guardian Fest. Sorry, I apologize. Guardian Fest. Thank you, Mayor. So we're off to a good start in January. I'm going to leave it to my staff to fill in on our accomplishments from last year's. We'll start off with finance and Steve Wells. Steve, if you don't mind standing.
Good morning. Our 2022 fiscal year concluded on December 31st. Have great news to report. Our gross revenue for the year came in about $17.37 million, which exceeded budget of $12.73 million by $4.6 million. Continuing net operating income totaled $9.25 million versus a budget of $6.48, which is favorable by $2.77 million. What does it mean? Overall, our net income deficit for the year, we reported a deficit of $840,000 versus a budgeted deficit of $3.8 million. We were favorable to budget by $2.96 million for the 22 year. Also like to highlight work that the ASM Global corporate office completed for us. They were able to secure us a $210,000 credit that was a component of the CARES Act,
Right.
Employee Retention Tax Credit. We received that in December. It's deposited, and it was a big part to help us get to where we wanted to be.
And Mayor, I'd like to add on to the financial. We went into 2022 rather conservatively because we didn't know what effects COVID would still have for us.
Right.
That being said, the team really went above and beyond as they always do, but especially in sales, one of the things that we did, and Travis is going to talk more about sales. One of the things that we did was the Best Western, which was a huge hit for us, along with some other things. So with that, I'll turn it over to Travis.
If I could just add a little bit of flavor, when we built our 2022 budget, it was August of 21, and I think at that point we were in the land of Delta.
Yes.
And we completed our budget, and then in the next 3 months before we hit the fiscal year, we had several significant pieces of business that were budgeted for 2022 that canceled, postponed, or just decided not to move forward. And with that, it's a testament of the job that Travis's team did to not only make that up, but really put us way over the top.
No pressure, Travis.
Thanks. Yeah, always good to follow Steve. So as Ron and Steve said, when we started coming out of 21 into 22, we really weren't sure where the industry, and along with our hotel partners, David Gilbert's team, the industry really, we are seeing a rebound. We're seeing less of a request for social distancing, hybrid meetings, et cetera. Lead volume picked up significantly compared to 20 and 2021. In 2022, we executed 102 contracts in 2022. So that's things that actually came in 22, turned definite for 22 and future. Those represent 100,000 room nights into the city from 22 and beyond. As Ron mentioned, one of our biggest wins was an in-the-year, for-the-year lead conversion and accrual for Best Western, which had a net revenue of over $500,000. And again, those things, that was a total city effort to secure something that size in a 10-month period, to not only have them come in from multiple sites, have them arrive, have them leave, all within a 10-month period. One of our other big wins is we negotiated a 4-year agreement with the International Elastomer Conference. So there'll be a cornerstone event at the center every odd year, 23, 25, 27, 29. Each year that program comes into the city in September or October. It's 4,800 room nights per year, 5,500 attendees from Cleveland. So it is a you're looking at a 20,000 room night piece of business that we signed, again, with the help of David's team. And then we continue to partner with different community events, the county, et cetera. We hosted the GCP annual meeting, United Way, Ruth Radner, MedWorks Free Dental Clinic, the College Now Career Fair, which is actually coming back again in the next month, Cuyahoga County, different events, including the forfeiture land sale. So a lot going on, and a lot of support, which we appreciate. But we're seeing the business come back, which is it's a good thing to see. And the request for hybrid meetings, like I said, is almost completely non-existent, which makes me very happy.
So once Travis books it, then we have to, of course, we have to make it happen. So Harold Davis, our director of events, is going to talk about the events from 2022. So Harold, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Last year we hosted 106 events with a total attendance of 170,138 of guests moving throughout our facility. Hosted the 2022 NBA All-Star Game, lunch with the legends, and other supporting events. Signature events for 22 was, of course, Best Western North American Conference, Content Marketing World that usually kicks off our fall season. As we know, we had a women cybersecurity in the beginning of the year in March, and usually in the fall and spring is our busiest time. But summer last year was just as busy. Key events that took place: FBI Annual National Training Conference in July, Blacks in Government in August, and National Homeland Security Conference in July. Score of 90% in our overall experience from responses to the 2022 meeting planner survey. Also, we supported the Cuyahoga County Courts of Common Pleas.
The county has been, thank you to the county, they've been one of our best clients in the last couple of years with courts. So we appreciate their efforts. I want to go back and concentrate a little bit. Did you go back one? The 95% overall experience, we send a survey to every client that comes through the convention center. So to have a 95% overall experience, we're very proud of. And again, that's a whole team effort for that. So we can go ahead and move forward from that, Julie. Thank you.
Okay, on the operations side, regarding capital, a few key projects. We mentioned the exterior security bollards early on. However, in 2022, we also got across the finish line to upgrade of our security system and our surveillance system. We replaced 22 cameras throughout the building. A lot of our cameras were existing 2013, going back to 2013, the end of life. So a lot of the cameras out now are a lot better. And so we were able to swap out a lot of the older life cameras, and also install cameras in certain key critical locations. Our Wi-Fi was able to fully become operational. That was that project that we approved, I believe, in 2021, early in 2021. It's been fully calibrated, fully operational in 2022. We really saw the results. So thank you to the board. That was a huge thing for us to be able to upgrade that technology. We had the best year we've ever had, one of the best years we've ever had in revenue on the IT side of things. A big part of that was having the infrastructure to be able to track the events and be able to track the use that allowed us to do that. So thank you to the board for allowing us to get that across the finish line. Cybersecurity, we continue to invest in cybersecurity. It's never going to end, right? Our corporate office helps us out tremendously with training of our employees, because at the end of the day, your biggest vulnerability is really your employees. And so it's important to train them thoroughly. Then obviously we have everything backed up on the cloud and on site, and we have a local third-party vendor that monitors our system that can prevent threats from even getting into our network. So, all right, and then with that, I'll turn it over to Mark Jekovich, who is our Director of Operations.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability key points that we've had across 2022. So Grind Energy, which is our food waste recycling technology that we have on our loading dock, we were able to divert 15.8 tons of food waste across 2022. We saw great jumps in that number in the second half of 2022, and really attribute that to our recruiting efforts, getting our staffing levels back to pre-pandemic levels, and also staff training to be able to really utilize that technology for what it was put in for. So we've really seen extreme positive uptick in that number, and I expect that number to go up in 2023. With that, also with our overall recycling numbers, we were able to divert over 165,000 pounds of waste from the landfill, which is great, and we will continue to build on that number moving forward. Workplace safety, 0 recordable injuries, which is great for us. We really attribute that to ASM's OSH programs that we utilize across all of our sister venues. We have a robust list of safety programs, whether it's slip, trips, and falls, confined spaces, ladder safety, lift safety. What we do is we take those from corporate, and then we take them and we use them on our behalf. We tweak them to match our campus and the ins and outs of what we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But be able to record 0 recordable injuries for an entire year is a huge win, and we attribute that to those robust programs and our training platforms here locally, getting our staff up to speed on what to do and not to do in certain situations. So we're very pleased with that. Yeah.
So I'd just like to also add, as far as under sustainability, the diversion of 165,000 pounds of waste, the convention industry is inherently wasteful, as far as you have transient business coming in, right? You have exhibitors setting up. And so it takes a lot of hard work to communicate and come up with plans and get that trash that could have ended up in landfill, get it out of there and either donate it, repurpose it, or reuse it, or recycle it. So there's a lot of effort. So thank Mark and the team.
All right, any questions?
I'll take a big comment on that. The thing that's very impressive to me is how hard we compete for business here. When people come to town, event planners come to town, and they have a choice of Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, whatever it is. We have to compete to show that this is the place we want to be. And our people do a wonderful job of it. And the other thing we do is we spend the money on our Wi-Fi, our computers. We spent a couple $1 million, I think it was last year, to update that. They know that. The event planners know it, and they're planning 2, 3, 5 years out. So a lot of times we don't do these things. They won't book with us, and we won't know it for 3 or 4 years. So they're doing a wonderful job.
Thanks, George.
Question? Oh, go ahead.
Go through the first.
No, the only question I was going to ask is projecting into the future. I know 2023, we were expecting it to be softer, which is a perfect year to do a construction project. And then with the idea of 2024 and going, how is that materializing now that you're getting closer, to actually, are you seeing an uptick, or how are things coming out? Expectations versus reality for 23 and 24?
And 23 is still going to be, we're starting off strong with the volleyball to dance. It's still softer than we would like. We are seeing short-term business. We're going after, like George said, we're going after everything, anything in the year for the year. We were already aggressive. Now we're hyper aggressive.
And we knew that. We always knew 23 is.
I don't see, I don't see 23 being anything beyond what Ron has said. It's going to be a great year to do a renovation. 24, 25, I will say 25 was a big concern for us in 21, 22. We have really turned that around and gotten ahead of pace citywide. With the focused effort. 26, we're now focusing a lot on, and I will say that the renovation is healthy. We're already selling the new space because we need to sell it now so that I can't wait till it's done to sell it. That's not going to go over well. So we're selling it now. That has been a huge plus to have that additional space. We're getting business and leads that we weren't getting just by being able to have that additional space. So I think 24, 25 are going to be great. 26, I see. Got a lot of positive there, and then, we're booking further out. Like I said, we went 27, 29 with the last conference. We're getting our booking window further out and filling in.
And I know, to add to that, I know David's on the call. Destination Cleveland has done a great job of looking at the pace of booking, citywide bookings into the future. And David, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're really ahead of pace into the future. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, we're doing actually far better than we've ever done in our history. And The other thing I would say with that is, and it's because of our joint abilities here to book far more in the future than we ever have, is the percentage of room nights in the community that come from group rooms, that come from meetings and conventions, continues to go up. You know, we've been a very leisure-heavy market, which we still are, but we're doing every year, really doing very well in percentage of rooms related to group bookings.
And I'll just say this because I make it a mission of mine to say that every
Yes,
single meeting,
and I appreciate it.
heads and beds. So obviously, as you're looking into the future, heads and beds is the focus.
Excellent.
Thank you, Majid.
Any other questions for Ron, Mike, anybody? Good
Mr.
job,
Chairman, Ron, are the courts still operating out of the convention
Yes,
center?
yes, until approximately the 1st of March, Trevor.
Okay.
So they're still here.
Do they want to extend the agreement, or are they planning to phase out and be done by the 1st of March?
They wanted to extend, but because of construction, we cannot extend them.
Okay.
Now, we are looking at perhaps a couple of times where perhaps in the grand ballroom, for example, if they have a need, that we could host some jury selection in the grand ballroom. So we're working with them on those, you know, kind of one-offs. But as far as on a daily basis, we'll be done around the 1st of March.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
All right. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, this is Mike. Mr. Chairman, the page on the screen, it says 2022 recap diversity and inclusion. I'd like to comment on that. I know last year, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your laser focus and how we as a board, and thanks to the management for focusing on it. What I hope to see when we do this in 2023, just like we did financials, numbers are facts and numbers speak volume. I'm not trying to be critical, but in 2022, what I like to see this page to say, recruited X number of positions in these categories of underserved community or ethnic minorities, spent X amount of dollars with MBE minority contractors, did business with X number of disadvantaged businesses and so on and so forth. So this is a good start, but you know, next 2023, I'm very hopeful that we will be able to bullet point specific outcome and economic impact in diversity and inclusion.
That's what I like, Mike. You're already on it. We were on it.
Yeah.
So I think Mike's about to bleed into it because I wanted to, as we were preparing for this meeting, I want to make sure in 21 this group had come up with a MBE, WBE, SBE participation plan what this organization wanted to see done. And now that we're moving forward to the end of this new upcoming construction project, we just had that conversation, and I think Mike's going to bleed into that right now. Because I want to make sure that everybody remembers what it is and how we're going to attack it. But Mike made great points because it's got to be attacked just like you laid out.
Yep. All right. So just to hit on the last bullet point on this screen, as far as procurement goes. All right. So ASM's always been committed to making best faith efforts, regarding the use of certified county diversity businesses. In 2021, under the direction of this board, we submitted a MBE, WBE, SBE participation plan, which was adopted. And in that, we came up with goals and strategies to continue to improve our performance. This plan is in the board packet today. Overall, our goals on the operating expenditure side was 30%. In 2022, we came in at 77%. On the capital expenditure side, our overall goal was 30%. We came in at 19%. So our strategies are working, but overall, We would like to have more opportunity to drive more MBE participation. We're currently working with several members that we've identified, several MBEs, county registered MBEs, and we're helping them to become. We're making sure that they can provide the services we need, but also we have a couple other vendors that we believe will qualify, but we're helping them, coach them through the process to become registered. One new strategy we would like to see if we could employ is to tap into the city's MBE, SBE, WBE certified diversity business list. We feel that'll give us a wider pool to be able to pull from and further enhance our participation. And so, certainly we're open to any ideas that the board has, but the strategies that this board helped us create back in 2021 are working. I think if we were able to cast a wider net, so to speak, and tap into the city's resources, that certainly would help. But we're certainly open to any suggestions.
Jeff got something to say here.
So just a question in terms of the certifications. I noted that the number on MBE for operating was 0 in 2022, which is not, I wouldn't call that a success. Are there businesses you're working with that are minority businesses that just have not gone through the certification process?
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
And when we add those in, what percentage do we get to?
There's a couple companies that we just recently identified that can help us in the janitorial category. So from a percentage basis, I'd have to do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to connect you with the city's Department of Office of Economic Opportunity, but I do think we got to go back to the drawing board and figure out if this was the plan isn't working on MBE, what do we need to do differently? What are the other partners we need to bring to the table here? My friend Michael, the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah. So Jeff and Mike, I was at a meeting 2 weeks ago when it came up, right? So what I think the problem here is that we're operating off the county's MBE list, and the folks that the services we need, the list is minuscule. So when I saw the MBE with 0 people, I was like, are you kidding me, right? And so in the meeting I was in a couple weeks ago, I guess there's a push out here because for those companies, you have to register with the county, city, state, and those are all individual registrations that you have to go through. So most of these companies are not going to do that. So there's a push out here to try to unify recognition of those organizations. So when you belong to the county's MBE program, then the city and the state would accept that, right, as a part of the overall, you got a license to do business, right? And so, Urban League was leading this the other day at this one meeting, talking about how this is working behind the scenes, because I think this is part of your problem. Michael Obi, and I was going to say this. I think for those you're trying to train these MBE companies to register.
Yeah.
I think the Urban League has a program that will help them facilitate the registration in these certifications. So I don't know that us recreating the wheel. I think there's an arm out here that's looking to do that.
I think the issues for any vendor to register with an entity, they have to be doing business with it. I mean, for them to go through that process to get registered, a lot of the services that we need are not necessarily services that the county generally contracts for, which is you're going to have a much smaller pool in the county registration. The city, and quite frankly, more than the city, presumably CMHA, that would have even more people who would do those types of services than we do. The question really that I have, and maybe do we need to our policy, because I think our policy ties it to the county, do we need to sort of tweak our policy a little bit to give them the leeway to get the MBEs from, because right now you're following the policy and the policy just puts you in one direction.
Right.
So you're having to go through the process of getting people registered, and do we need to tweak the policy to be able to tap into the city, to tap into CMHA? I don't know the answer to that. I raise it as a question.
So let me chime in on this one. So historically, at the outset keep in mind when the whole convention center project started, it was a development agreement involving the county and a developer, which then turned into the CCCFDC. So there was a historical root based on how the organization was funded, how it came about, that did rely on county programs and did reference county program, the county program. I think right now the exploration is, and we'll come back to the board, but I think that there is the ability to discuss expanding the certification basis and who can become part of that program. By the way, we do have individuals or companies that have been hired that actually don't count in the numbers, but would be MBEs under the city program from time to time. So number one, looking back and I think expanding the program and determining what certifications will be accepted, and I think that's something we can discuss and come back to broaden that. I think that's part of what's going on in the community anyway, in different areas. Second, I do want people to understand it's also taking a look at the categories that are even where we can even talk about this. So, for example, on construction, this is easy to do. I mean, it's easy to talk about a construction project. When you look at the expenditures, though, that the CCCFDC has, that ASM has, there are limitations. For example, a very, very large part of what we spend money on, is utilities. Power, for example, and there's just not opportunity there. But that's a big part of the expenditure. So when you look at the percentage of expenditure, there's some very large categories where there's just no capability to put those expenditures into any form of minority, small, or female-owned business. But I think we do have to come back with an enlarged program to maximize what we can put into who we can attract and who can be certified and provide services.
Hey, Jeff, following up with your comment, do we have a requirement that if somebody is MBE certified with the state, do we require them to be certified with the county before we count them?
The policy is narrower. Let me just say that the policy is narrower than I think it needs to be. I think we can enlarge it, and I would like to have a group look at this and then get back to the board with a recommendation.
Yes. What I'd like to suggest is what major companies in America do, and even right here under our nose. If you're certified with any legitimate agency, back to the mayor's comment, because it's too burdensome for businesses to go through all this bunch of certifications. If you're a state of Ohio certified MBE or county or city, that certification, we should accept it. It would be my recommendation. We shouldn't take them through another certification to prove that they're a minority. If they're already proven with the city, the county, or the state, that ought to be enough for us to move on. That'd be my recommendation.
I understand that, and I think I think we should have we should discuss that, and maybe Mayor, we should have a group. There were, I will tell you, some of the early discussions on this about state certification. Early on, there were also leaders in the community that said what we really care about are MBEs, FBEs who are certified in Northeast Ohio. The fact that someone from Southern Ohio that is certified comes and works here is not. It was not viewed as the same value. So I'm just telling you, that was a consideration years ago. So I just think a group has to talk about that.
Yeah, John, I wasn't referring to that. What we have is the state of Ohio, okay, which a lot of these minorities get certified. That is more efficient for them because they could do business with the state and also local. what our companies in Cleveland Clinic, everybody accepts is if you're certified with the state, then that's it. For you to do business within the county, that ought to be enough. So we're not shooting ourselves on the foot and adding more paperwork for the businesses.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I just think it's a question of coming back to the board, broad definition to modify the policy.
And the only other thing.
Last comment for me, because Urban League was mentioned. Urban League is the state of Ohio and back center for 8 counties in Northeast Ohio. So if you're doing business with someone who is not certified, the Urban League and back has an expedited process because they have a contract in hand or they're about to get a contract and they just need that piece of paper. Urban League and back under the director Shoshana Duckworth, they will expedite that certification process.
The only thing I would say, as we tweak that policy, Jeff, as you look at it, maybe some of the reporting requirements we need to look at. I mean, if you care about something, you measure it. And I think, you gave the example of utilities. I know elevators, there's 3 companies and that's it. So maybe we need to break down those numbers by more nuanced categories so that when the board is looking at it, instead of bulk expenditure, instead of operating, we know elevators, there's only 3. There's nothing we can do about that. Utilities, if those could be broken out, so at least we have a more complete picture of what we're looking at when we see the reports, I think that would be helpful too.
All right, so
Chair,
Jeff.
one thing I would add, right now, the Cleveland Guardians have begun basically a community engagement on their innovation, and they're having neighborhood workshops and trying to get as much MBE, FBE participation as possible, and they're going to issue their calendar here soon of all these meetings. I think this is something that we can partner with them. They've been meeting with the county probably over the last couple months about trying to increase their numbers as well. So should have a conversation with them, Ron.
Trevor, what I'm going to tell you is, and that's in connection with their construction project. We're going to be doing exactly the same thing. I think Ed Paparone is on the line. I'm sure if you will be going through that, but we will be doing exactly the same process for our construction project.
Well, here, so there are a couple of us on the board here. We're at some of these Guardian meetings. And Jeff, you want to talk to it just a bit?
Yeah, but I just think the level of outreach, I don't want to get hung up too much on the certification issue, because I think it really is like on the categories where we legitimately could do operating business with minority-owned businesses. What is the outreach that we're doing into the community to try to source and identify and make it easy to work with the convention center for business? What kind of partnerships are we building with other organizations to help train entities and bring entities up, or are there apprenticeship opportunities for smaller entities to work with existing entities to learn how to get a bigger contract like this? And I think there's learning to be done. The Urban League does a great job of this, but there are other large organizations across the city, and I think about UH in particular, done a really good job of this in their procurement practices. And I'd love to see us be a little bit more proactive in that planning, whether that's directly through the staff or whether there's a consultant to be engaged. And we can sort out the certification issue, but I think it goes back to targeting and consistent outreach, because it's not going to happen. And I'll make my the comment I make on these certifications is like, we don't make white businesses get certified. We're putting all these businesses through all these extra hoops to be able to do business, and it's the reality of the situation. But I want to keep it in mind when we're thinking about this public entity that's spending. I know not all $10 million is going to be MBE eligible spend, but close to $10 million of operating expense. We've got to figure out a way to get off zero.
All right. Questions? A great discussion. Jeff, where are we going from here? What are you suggesting?
Well, the only thing I would say on this, you know, agree with everything everyone has said. I would suggest, though, that as we revise the policy, I think that you should, and you don't have to do it right now, but I think we should have a committee of individuals looking at this. I do not, I've done this a lot and I've drafted these policies, but these are policy issues, and I think that we need a few different individuals on this board, in this organization to be part of the conversation. So I think you should appoint a committee to rethink this.
All right, so what we're gonna do is, Julie, send out a email to the board, right? So we'll put a policy committee to look at this very issue, and then send an email out to folks that are interested in it to participate in it.
Okay.
And then we'll get that group, we'll solidify that group, and then we'll get out to the weeds and figure out what we need. Because there's enough people here that are concerned, going back to 21, that were concerned about the execution of this, right? Now we're here. So send that out as soon as possible, and then we'll just get a meeting together and start putting that policy discussion together.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
get that out today.
All right. Any other questions for the Convention Center update and ASM staff? All right, let's go to the project update, turn construction, turn Ellis.
Good morning, everybody. I've got nothing but good news to talk about with regard to the expansion project. We are on track and on schedule. We have our conditional landmarks commission approval, which is allowing us to get our permits. So we're in for demolition permit right now, which means we're starting to transition into construction. So the main purpose for me here today is to introduce you to the construction team. I'm going to let Marty start off. I do want to say one thing about Marty. He's going to be retiring this year, and so he's also going to be showing us who he's going to take over for his executive role, but I'm going to miss Marty. I've worked with him for a long time, and congratulations, Mark. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ellis. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to walk us through our update. Oops, did I go the wrong way?
No, you did. That's good.
Talk about our team, an update on the project schedule, a little overview of some of the site logistics of the job, particularly as it relates to segregating the public from the users, and talk about our diversity outreach plan.
It's a little bit of a delay.
So our team, like Ellis said, I've been leading our team and retiring in April, and I'm going to turn it over to Ed Paparoni, who will be our project executive, leading the job to conclusion. And the rest of our team here today, Terry Donovan, our project manager, Dan Gearing, our project superintendent, and David Crum, our project engineer, are each going to tell you a little bit about their role on the job. And I think Ed Paparoni, will start with you.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
I apologize. I couldn't be there today in person. I'm also battling a fight with pneumonia that I'm winning, and hopefully we'll beat it up by next week and be back in the game. But my role as project executive is similar to what Marty's done over the past several months, shepherding the job to this point. It's to give overall management and guidance to our team and direct the design and construction team to and monitor those efforts to ensure that we meet all the promises that we've made to the community and the county in regards to community commitment, in regards to the budget and schedule, and getting the facility open for the new shows that you guys are already booking. That is primarily my role on the project. My success in the past has been brought by having strong teams, a strong team effort, and we have what I think is a very, very strong team that I'd like them to go a little bit more in depth on what they do for the project, starting with Terry Donovan, my project manager, who we are together wrapping up a project at SUMA for a behavioral health facility, $70 million job that's now going through punch list and being occupied. So we have a success story there. We're going to continue that same success on the convention center renovation. So Terry, if you would, please tell a little bit about what your role is going to be over the next several months on the project.
Yep, thanks, Ed. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for having us. Appreciate it. My name is Terry Donovan. Been with Turner for just over 23 years now. Like Ed said, right now, this week we moved patients in our 7-story behavioral health pavilion at Suma Hospital. Really proud of what we did there for the community. I mean, that's kind of primary thing going on right now. Here on site, I'll be one of our full-time people that's on site dealing with our team. Any issues that prop up or would happen, I'd be the guy that you would be talking to back and forth. Obviously, we'll talk with the rest of our team as well, but I'd be the day-to-day guy here on site throughout the construction of the project. Really excited to be here. Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to let Dan introduce himself, our project superintendent.
Thank you. Dan Gehring. I've been with Turner just shy of 38 years. And except for 2 years back in the late 80s where I was in the cost department in the main office, the remaining 36 years have all been spent on the job site, in the field, what I like to call it, coordinating day-to-day construction activities. So I will be the full-time on-site, day-to-day, if it's construction related in this building, around this site, ultimately, it's my responsibility. Coordination, installation, safety, you name it, falls on my shoulders. So, I'm looking forward to it. I've spent the last 4 years at Metro Health. I ran that job. I ran this job. It's my favorite job of all time. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to complete this project. Well aware of August of 2024's
Hi everyone, Megan Crum. I've been with Turner, project engineer. I've been with Turner for 10 years now. Started my career with Turner in this building, first project, so look forward to coming back and seeing it come back to life. And I am, like I said, project engineer. I will be overseeing the project financials, so the budget, submittals, RFIs. So with that, and working alongside Dan and Terry with everything else as far as schedule and the field coordination as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Next, I wanted to just get an overview of the schedule. Right now, our design build team is in the design phase. It's completing the construction documents. We're having meetings, transitioning the criteria to design from PBS to our team led by Moody Nolan, and that's going to continue through April. And we're going to start construction 1st of March. As soon as the courts move out, we'll be right behind them. Some of the milestones that are important here is the C-line truss. That's the truss we're building along the west wall here, so we can cut out columns to make the column-free ballroom. The ballroom addition will follow that. There'll be the work that we're doing interior renovation on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floors, along with the new atrium escalators and monumental stair. And we're going to be putting some new rear doors on one of the elevator banks. And like Dan said, we're well aware of the ASME convention, and we will be done in June, so you have some time to prepare to get ready for that convention. We put together a summary from our detailed schedule of just some activities that are going to be going on over the next 4 months. I know that's very tough to read, and that's why I'm going to ask Dan to give you a little verbal update on what he's going to be doing out in the field starting in March for the next few months.
From a simplicity standpoint, just to let you know how my brain works, I look at this as almost like 3 different jobs in one job. Basically, you have the west facade and all of the steel work required to ultimately get you to a column-free expansion of the ballroom. That's like job 1. The elevators and escalators in the main lobby around active businesses and the ability for the public to get to the convention center is kind of like job 2. And then all of the remaining architectural revisions, toilet room upgrades, et cetera, is job 3. Generally speaking, they all go simultaneously. The first thing we have to do when we get in here is prepare to remove the facade off the west side. So it's creating a weather-tight, hurricane-proof exterior wall replacement while that skin is gone and all of that exterior wall, or structural stud work rather, takes place. Simultaneously to that, it's come into the lobby, put up the temporary protection required to keep us isolated from public traffic, et cetera, and prepare to access 4 stories in the air, the ceiling that needs to come out to add steel that's ultimately going to support the escalators and elevators. All the while, begin the demolition of the architectural space, the toilet rooms, et cetera. So 3 separate things in one is just the way that I think through this job and the way that it'll be tracked. And our schedule kind of represents that. When you have the opportunity to see a bigger version of it, you'll be able to see everything broken down to that degree. That's kind of the big picture. Questions? Thank you.
So next, I want to touch a little bit on the logistics. These are just a couple excerpts from our construction logistics plan. And the key was to show you a big picture. You can see on the left, the existing global center with the addition of the ballroom extension. The 2 plans on the right, the top one is the first level, the atrium level. The one below it is level 2. And what they are trying to show is where you see the blue shading on the atrium level, the L shape. That is a protected corridor that keeps Starbucks and your other retail tenants separate from construction. And it also allows your visitors to come in from St. Clair along the east wall and get down the escalators to the convention center, or vice versa, come up and go to Starbucks or the other places. So that's how we're going to segregate your continued users from our construction. The lower plan shows a blue area along the south side of the building, so your retail tenants can come up the elevators there in the southwest corner and be protected as they walk down to the restroom that is there for their use. So the intent is we're going to keep our work separate from your retail tenants. Diversity outreach. Some of the things we heard before, we're already going down the road of implementing our plan that we did present at the December board meeting. And our first outreach event is tentatively scheduled for February 14th. We're working with Mike and his team to try and define an exact date, time, location. And the intent is to bring and invite as many minority contractors as we can locate, and we can locate a lot because we use a lot of them, and we have their contact information. We're also going to reach out to a number of organizations to help us get the word out of when the event's going to be. And what we do is we will have a presentation to bring the contractors up to speed on our project scope, our schedule for awarding bid packages, who the prime contractors are they should be talking to, who are going to be bidding the work of this job, inviting both prime contractors and minority contractors to this event to have an opportunity to meet and greet and make a connection. And then at that meeting, we will have scheduled our next meeting. And our next meeting is we'll follow up on some of the conversations we had today. We invite the county to come and help present to newer minority firms. Here's the process you have to go through to get and walk them through it and give them names and numbers to call if they need help. And we bring our procurement people in to do the same, show our newer minority contractors, here's how to get pre-qualified with Turner. So you're in our system, and it's a push button for us to notify you for work. And it's been successful when we built the original convention center and global center, when we did the Hilton Hotel. We had a series of those meetings, similar process. And the ultimate result was in both these projects, we exceeded the goals. Each of these jobs had a total 25% minority women and small business goal, and we hit 32% on both those jobs. And no expectation to not do the same thing here. Because we've been doing this since the 60s here in Cleveland. It's ingrained in what Turner does. And we have the contractors who work for us have been doing it with us. And so we've got a great network to meet and exceed goals, and that's really what we expect to do.
So taking me through this outreach you're doing on the 14th, what are you doing? I mean, because I know what you're doing. How are you marrying the two together, the primes and the small MBE companies? Because that's where the disconnect is, right?
Yeah.
Right. You can get them to the room, but it's getting them to the job, right? Get them to come together. That's what I was at the Guardians meeting. The same thing is going on, right? Unless you're intentional about just that piece, there's a chasm there, right? So how are you doing that?
We bring them, and hopefully we're going to set up in a big meeting room, give them the introduction. Out in cars, we'd like to set up tables where each of our prime contractors has a table with a couple of representatives. A sign that indicates what their firm is. And in our initial presentation, we will tell all the participants, here's who's here, go out and talk to them. And at the end of the meeting is just essentially a meet and greet. Mm-hmm. So that these contractors who may not already know these contractors have an opportunity to say, hey, I do what you need, so let's talk about how I can participate with you. And I will tell you too, a lot of the prime contractors we deal with in Cleveland already have their own great network. It's like I said, we've been requiring of our contractors since the 60s. So there's already a great network out there of minority contractors having relationships with primes. But these kind of outreach events, there's always new companies coming up, and it gives them the opportunity to start to establish those relationships.
So, Marty, just sort of, I think it's a term that we use, and I find it very interesting that we use prime contractors and then minority. And I presume you refer, because I would think of you as the prime and they're all, but I'm guessing you're defining prime contractors as your immediate subs, and then the MBEs as the sub of sub?
Yes.
Okay. How many of your immediate subs are minority, not the sub of the sub?
Some are. For example, we're gonna, we had a potential design assist steel contractor who's a minority. And there are other firms that are large enough to.
And are we doing, I mean, obviously we can't do it on a single contract, but in terms of efforts to move the sub of sub to become the primary, moving subs into prime contractors, I guess, you know, is there any initiatives on that?
Yes, by setting the size of a bid package so a minority contractor can take on a prime role. And we do that and a couple covers that. Sometimes it doesn't happen first time, it may happen over a number of projects that a firm takes that role. More questions?
Can you make sure we get notice of this event? So
Yes.
we can make sure we share it. Sure. Yeah.
And then if we needed to, we brought, this is the the plan we had walked through at the December meeting that we're tracking toward. And I need to go to any more detail.
All right, anybody got any questions here? Marty? All right, thanks, Marty. All right, we're gonna go to the Hilton Hotel update.
Good morning. Thank you. The next slide, Julie. In terms of the lodging market overall, by year end, RevPAR did recover back to 2019 levels on a nominal basis. Factoring inflation and everything else, not quite there yet, but at least on the top line basis, did recover. The recovery was uneven. In the top 25 markets, you certainly saw some winners, particularly resort destinations, Oahu and Tampa. And some markets are still lagging, San Francisco and Minneapolis. Leisure demand and group business is coming back steadily. Group business travel still a little sluggish in terms of the recovery. It can literally be market by market, week by week. The 2023 outlook for the industry is for moderate RevPAR growth. But from an operator's perspective, they're really concerns about the rising operating costs, costs increasing greater than revenue. From an investment perspective, economic uncertainty, rising interest rates, and margin pressure are, three key factors as we look at, the capital markets and the transaction opportunity for 2023. In terms of the Cleveland market overall, really recovery compared to 22 versus 21 was in line with national stats. The Cleveland market overall recovered, grew RevPAR 30.6% compared to the U.S. average of 29.8%. So very much in line with other comparable markets in the U.S. average. Next slide. In terms of the downtown set, so this is comparing the downtown hotels to 2019. RevPAR downtown by the end of the year was just about 94% of 2019 level. The downtown hotels still not quite fully recovered to 2019 levels, primarily on occupancy. Rates have been strong, but really it's the occupancy side, it's that group side, and it's that business travel side that are still the gaps. Next slide. In terms of outlook, this is actually as of this week, the PW Smith, this is a CBRE estimate, Smith Travel estimate. But RevPAR is expected to grow 3.7% industry-wide this year. Now comparing the bottom line here is the real RevPAR index, which takes into consideration CPI adjustments. So still not quite back, even with the growth this year, not quite back to 2019 levels in terms of inflation adjusted dollars. Overall for the local market, again, sort of this 90-odd% range. As Trevor outlined, 2023 group has always been a concern, but we have seen much more short-term pickup here. Cancellation concerns always out there a little bit. Again, as Trevor mentioned, a year ago now, we were sort of in the middle of Omicron and, stuff was coming off the books faster than it was coming on the books. But we did see in the Q4 here that Western was very helpful, but also sports-related demands really help drive some very peak nights in the downtown market. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, no questions. All right, thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna talk about the proposed management agreement extension. I'm turning it over to Jeff Applebaum.
I'm gonna do that. So I wanted to mention one administrative matter that we need to talk about. The ASM agreement comes to the first term ends at the end of this year, December 31st, 2023. It's actually the SMG agreement because when we started it, it was before SMG became ASM. Under the terms of that agreement, the way it works is there is a renewal term. So we as the operator have the right in our sole discretion to extend the agreement for an additional 5-year term by giving notice to ASM before August 1, 2023. And the concept or the contemplation would be that you would renew it. It's the same contract. You would be on the same business terms, the same economic terms. So the consideration for the board is obviously the decision to renew the agreement. To the extent, though, that we do renew the agreement, I've looked at the agreement and there are a few technical changes that we would need to make. And that is primarily because the original agreement, when it was created, we still had the concept of the Global Center, for Health Innovation, which was a showroom concept, not a convention center concept. So keep in mind, for example, that agreement still talks about the obligations with respect to the Global Center, and it also the incentive compensation component also relates to things like tenant lease out of the Global Center, as opposed to what the rest of the convention center is all about, which is revenues generated from events. So what I would suggest would be that that we be authorized, and by we that would be George as the executive director and I, to go back to the agreement, suggest the modifications to the agreement to conform the agreement to what the business model now will be with the entire facility operating as a convention center. Pre-negotiate, make sure that ASM, if you want to renew with ASM, agrees to the terms and conditions of a revised agreement, and then come back with that and present it for the board's consideration.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I think I'm somebody who always likes to go out on the market. Looking at where we are right now, one, ASM has been doing a great job, but more importantly than that is, I think, the timing we're in with the construction project that we're under, with the number, with this, the Society of Executive Association executives coming in June, with a lot of the booking going in years into the future, I do think it makes much sense for us to authorize the executive director with the assistance of legal counsel to go out and seek to negotiate the terms with ASM. So I would make a motion to authorize the executive director with the assistance of legal counsel to go out and do that. But I would like to make sure that that authorization specifically includes within it I would like to see as part of the deliverables the inclusion of diversity and inclusion as one of the benchmarks. I leave it, I'm looking for recommendations as part of the negotiations, how that happens as part of an incentive package or as part of the direct deliverables. But to the extent that the contract does not have a provision on diversity and inclusion, I want to make sure that it does have that, and it does have that in two respects. One, in terms of the contracting and the reporting on the contracting, but number two, the staffing of the people who are here. So with that, that's a long-winded motion, but I'll leave it at that.
All right. Jeff, you got a question?
On the agenda,
Hold on, Jeff.
on the agenda, we're slated to be in executive session for this conversation. Just wondering why we're not.
Doesn't qualify. I think
We're not going to go into executive session for this.
Doesn't meet the requirements under the Open Sunshine Meeting for executive session.
Okay. All right, so G has a motion on it. Is your motion to
authorize the executive director with the assistance of legal counsel to negotiate the terms of a renewal or new agreement, provided that it includes benchmarks and deliverables on diversity and inclusion and the parameters that I outlined.
All right, and that in turn will be brought back to this board.
That's not the authorization to enter into an agreement. It's the authorization to negotiate something, bring it back to us, and then.
I just want to make clarification.
No, just very clear. Yes. It's to negotiate, not to enter into.
Exactly. All right, so G, there's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chair, can I add something to that though? If we're looking at kind of adding or tweaking things, I would also request that George, as the executive director, look at the kind of year-end performance payout or bonus. What, I forget the exact name of it, but just to see if George would come back with any recommendations, or Jeff have any recommended changes to that formula as well.
All right, so you have the G's motion on the floor with Trevor's additional piece added to it. Are there any comments or questions? Jeff Epstein?
I would question, when was this initial agreement negotiated? How long ago?
Well, the initial one was the no convention center.
Okay.
Original agreement, yeah, let me give you some background on that. The original agreement was negotiated and completed October 31st, 2018. So that is after a competitive process that we originally had.
Jeff can't be right, because I was part of the team that made
No.
the selection.
I'm sorry, I got my dates wrong. It was 2013. And then the first 5-year extension was 2018. It has 2 5-year extensions. I got my dates wrong, sorry.
Thank you.
So it's got 2 5-year extensions, so this would be the second of the 5-year extensions.
Yes.
Do we want to look at, as part of this process, adding an extension term beyond that? You know, I agree with Vegeta. It doesn't seem like the right time to go back out to market, but I am.
We could consider that.
I think it's worth considering. I'd also like to suggest that George and Jeff just take a look at it. Are there any other terms in the agreement that are, that have been problematic for the board, or the organization, or, as well as, if we look at kind of what new market transactions look like for contracts like this that are happening now, making sure that we are comfortable that the extension terms are consistent with where the market is. If we're gonna open it, if we're not just gonna stamp and exercise the extension, we're gonna suggest some changes. I think it's worth kind of taking a quick survey of that.
Let me say that I did this in a short form. There's actually several things that we would look at. I didn't get into the list of those right now, but we have over time looked at a few different things, and we would intend to go through the agreement and do that. And by the way, I do want to point out, I don't want anyone to think the current agreement does have MBE, FBE requirements and goals, I should say, and performance criteria. Now, obviously, as we modify the policy overall, we'll make sure that they have the responsibility to implement that. But certainly, we would go through a holistic view of the entire agreement for any other issues that we think need to be brought up to speed.
Yeah, and just to be clear, my motion wasn't to renew with that exception. My motion was, to do the wholesale negotiations of any issues that are open. I just wanted to make sure that special attention is paid to the diversity and inclusion with measurable more than aspirational language, measurable benchmarks with consequences for how we handle diversity and inclusion.
All right, so we have G's motion followed by Trevor's additional addition to that motion, followed by Jeff Epstein's addition to that motion. Comments, questions, or concerns? All right, second. All right, so Trevor seconded. Julie, give me a roll call on this one.
Mayor Sellers?
Yes.
Majid McClue?
Yes.
Tim Oftermatt?
Yes.
Trevor McAleer?
Yes.
Jeff Epstein?
Yes.
Michael Obie?
Yes.
David Gilbert? David Gilbert? Matt Carroll? Or Rashonda Smith?
Yes.
Thank you, guys. All right, so Jeff and George, you know what to do, and then you start looking at that and then come back to us and we can all debrief and take a good look at it and see if this is where this board wants to go.
And Mayor, just to be clear, when we create this committee to look at our new MBE, FBE, DEI goals, what I would also do is present the language of this agreement to that committee, so that
Okay.
committee can also comment on what's in this contract on those provisions.
Perfect. All right, we're moving on to new business. Any new business, George, Julie? None? All right, next quarterly meeting is Friday, April 21st, 2023 at 8:30 in this room.
When is Easter?
What is that?
Okay, got that.
What's wrong?
Just wanted to make sure that wasn't there at Easter. That was Friday meeting where you didn't check. Okay, yep, that's just.
Mayor, we may have to change rooms depending on construction.
All right, yeah.
So we'll get that information out.
All right, be on the lookout. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, is there a second? All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is officially adjourned. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
George, Easter's